this is rapid action right now. The incoming right now is hard to almost even keep up with. We got affirmative action that is gone. That is such an immense victory. It has been this untouchable third rail. Why? Why? Because no one wanted to be called a racist. That's why. The failed cultural revolution of 2020 and 2021, where we were able to hold back just enough, revealed to the nation the disgusting lower impulses of the postmodernist, post-structuralist, left-wing, culturally Marxist movement. People started to open their eyes and saying that I don't want to raise my kids in this type of a country. And it's fascinating on the affirmative action topic in particular. Because some of what President Trump is doing is not necessarily supported by the vast majority of Americans. I don't know if the vast majority of Americans agree with what President Trump is doing with January 6th. I do, but I don't think that's necessarily in the vast majority of Americans. However, this is what's so interesting. Poll after poll, referendum after referendum, vote after vote shows that Americans detest affirmative action. That Americans think that affirmative action is the wrong way of hiring. Even in California. And we saw this with the Bakke case, where we struck down affirmative action at the Supreme Court. And yet, Republican presidents have been so terrified of touching this. The American people overwhelmingly, in poll after poll, have said they do not want race-based hiring in any sort of institution. California in 2020 voted for Joe Biden by 30 points, while simultaneously decisively rejecting affirmative action. And the media, they're just focusing on Enrique Tarrio, who was treated terribly, by the way. They're just focusing on Enrique Tarrio and that whole thing. When in reality, the structural changes that are happening are phenomenal. President Donald Trump parlayed this executive order spirit into a separate and equally potent executive order, as I mentioned with the FAA. We want the best pilots and the best air traffic control. We don't care about the color of somebody's skin when they're flying the plane. We just want to make sure that they are there based on merit and competency, not on melanin content. And you just think about what Joe Biden and what Barack Obama and what all of these people have had to do to bring us to this moment where President Donald Trump is just bringing back to a center, common sense, no nonsense, I don't care what names you're going to call me, policy portfolio. George W. Bush would never do this. He was terrified of trying to touch affirmative action. In fact, he might have liked it. We are going after the center of the life force of the illegitimate modern Democrat Party. The modern Democrat Party thrives on multiple falsehoods, and we are smashing them one after the other. The world is going to end because of climate change. That's one of them. Another one, trust the science, trust the science, trust the science. We're smashing that one. The other one, that love is love and trans people are who they say they are. Oh, the trans thing is over in this country. That thing, you want to talk about a reversal of a cultural revolution? We went from having to accept the whole trans zealotry in every major institution to the trans mafia, the purple-haired jihadis being run out in decent society. No, you're not going to be able to serve in the U.S. military if you're Jeff and you think you're Jill. No, you're not going to be able to go after our kids and gender mutilate. And by the way, stay tuned on the child mutilation stuff. There's stuff coming, as President Trump promised in the campaign. And thirdly, we are taking back terrain on core issues the Democrats thought they were going to control. Wide open borders. The president thought, President Biden and the Democrat Party thought that they were going to have an open border regime for a generation. They thought that they were going to be able to have limitless amounts of foreigners. That is over. It is done. The invasion is finished. And the deportation efforts are underway. What is the Democrat Party going to look like? They have a very serious problem here. The Democrat Party has a very serious problem looming because they have built their constituency on race obsession, and the country is race exhausted. So when you have a political party that is race obsessed and the nation is exhausted with your core issue, you're building yourself into a minority political party. And as the Democrats are so obsessed with, well, we have to make sure that BIPOC people have representation or Latinx people have representation. Got to make sure that you have the trans and the LGBTQIA2+. And meanwhile, President Trump is actually mirroring the will of the American people that say, no, why do we even have this affirmative action guideline around in the first place? And the affirmative action guideline was almost this untouchable, wholly inherited tradition that all it took is a signature. That's it. No lawsuits, no Supreme Court decisions, no major pieces of legislation. It didn't take, whipping votes on Congress. It took an act of the will. And that is what we are seeing. And it is being demonstrated. It is one of my core life philosophies. What you focus on is what you get. And most of life is, are you willing to actually go and do it? And we have had a managed decline in the 1990s and early 2000s and up until this point. It's been a slow motion managed decline. We would rather lose the country than be called the racist. And imagine, Democrats are going to be arguing against this. The Republican Party was in fear of this, when all it means is that they get to go on TV, on news stations that nobody watches, to go be quoted in newspapers that nobody reads, to go say that the Republicans are racist. Yawn, exhausted, tired, whatever. And we get to say, we just banned racial discrimination in government. I sent out one tweet yesterday, already has millions and millions of views on this topic. More than what Jamie Raskin can go caterwaul with Jen Psaki on MSNBC. Go ahead, go complain to your 15 viewers. How are they even going to get their message out? They're scolds, they're whiners. And what are they going to complain? Oh, I really wish white people could be discriminated against more in the government. No, no one wants that anymore. We are getting back to the center of the promise of the Founding Fathers. We're getting back to the core ethos of why this is the greatest nation in the history of the world. And it's not the greatest nation because of race politics. It's not the greatest nation because of DEI, critical race theory inspired policy measures. It's because of merit. It's because of this idea that you can succeed regardless of where you're from and who you are. And that is a beautiful thing. And President Trump is bringing it back.